Problems with doing a rules overview. It's just expensive for me. Early today, and part of it has to do with swapping batteries out and crap like that. But earlier today, I was buzzing along. I'd gotten through the first year of the game. It had taken me a week to get started, but once I did, I got through it pretty quickly. And I could have probably finished a game of it, just playing it by myself. But then when you start adding, even with my lack of video, editing or anything like that, when you start adding the overhead to just producing the playthroughs, it probably adds a fair percentage to the amount of time that it takes me to get through a game. For shorter games, the overhead of doing a rules explanation is particularly painful. That cost me a day when I could have played the game and finished it probably. And then, the review, which is always a fatiguing thing. And that's why part of me is just thinking, screw it, I'll just go back to the old format where I just played the game, maybe said a few words at the end. But I don't know. And I know a lot of you guys really want these parts. We'll see. Okay, well, we're ready to start. No, I haven't allocated the troops yet. All right, so you do know the cards that you have, and that can help you determine your overall strategy and everything. There's something very weird about that. They're not just a tactical consideration. The size of the spaces that you're dealing with are just too large to consider it anything of that sort. They're really something that affects your operational and, to a lesser degree, your strategic options. And then also, because they're getting expended in politics and in building troops and everything, they have wider ranging functionality. But in those cases, it feels like you're just spending resources. In the case of the combat decisions, which locations you want to defend, what you want to do, you're making some considerations that are of, significance within the campaigns at the very least. All right, let's allocate troops then, and I'll look at cards and try to do that. Let's take a look at, the Austrians are probably the most interesting to do this with. So I have hearts and spades that I'm kind of powerful in. Diamonds I don't care about. I don't have anything there. That being the case, both are of interest. Because I'm there. And over here it means I can kind of defend this. This isn't all that easily threatened. This unit could go up and fight there. But it's to my advantage to actually get the Austrians over there, I think, and let the it's to the advantage, I think, of the pragmatics. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell. I want the pragmatic army to take one area and the Austrians to take another, because he can move down and support the pragmatic, get support off the pragmatic supply train. I don't want them kind of colliding, and what the pragmatics really don't want is a situation where they've got, defense up here and are doing something down here with the Austrians in between them, because they can't draw except off that one supply train. All right, well, let's take a look at our Austrians. And they start with 28 soldiers. Now I have some minimums here. Let's get those minimums down to the ones I really don't want to overburden. Tron is 2. He has a minimum of 1. I'm not sure I don't want him kind of loose. 3 and 4 are my main armies. They are 6 and 2. I'm probably not going to upgrade that because these guys are of more interest. 5 and 1. I think I want to put these guys as big as I can. Oh, Ehrenberg here is a 4. I think he's less important to me than anyone else, so I'm going to make him a 4. Let's see. So that's 10, 12. 10, 12. That leaves me, let's give Tron 1. That's 13. That leaves me 15. So I'll do 8 and 7 on 1 and 5. Okay. And that focuses my strength here in an attempt to deal with Frederick. Is that wise? Maybe not. Maybe I just can't beat Frederick. That's actually an interesting point, but with the hearts and spades combination, I feel like that's directing me to go there. So I'm going to make that kind of decision with the other nations that are present. You know, well, Saxony is no big deal. They start out with wonder why that's not auto-written. Oh, because that's the Austrians. Yeah, that's Saxony as controlled by Austria. Yeah, so over here, Saxony, they've already got their 5 preset. That can't be changed. And then I'll look at the others and make my decisions based on, you know, what the sizes will be. I'll come back from that. Decisions have been made. We talked about the big Austrian divide that I was doing, but anyway, armies 1 and 5 are my main force with 8 and 7 in them. Others, I put their minimums in, basically. That included this guy. I just didn't want to... There are only so many troops, and he's got a fair distance to go before he gets to interfering with the French. Might be better to fight the French than the Prussians, I'm not sure. Over here I also went with a minimum. That's an interesting choice, but fits in with my anti-Prussia rather than anti-French stance. The Prussians, so the Prussian cards dictated this. They had no hearts, but they had spades and clubs. And that led me to believe I'm going to have to divide my force. So I actually put maximal strength on Leopold and Friedrich and Schwerin, kind of each have 4, and I'll be leading the charge down this way. It also means in the first year I'm probably not going to occupy Silesia unless I defeat the Austrian army. The game that I played solo just a year of, there were no battles at all anywhere. It was just pure maneuver. There were thoughts about battles, but you know, you figure people are parked in a place where their cards are decent. And so if your cards aren't particularly good, you probably don't want to fight. The fights happen when 2 people have good cards in an area, or if somebody's low in their initial cards. So like France has very few cards right off the bat, but those build up fairly quickly. They start getting a hand, you know, on their first turn, they get 4 or more cards, and I think they go first. So let's see. The pragmatics. I feel this is almost a book for this game. Stair takes maximum troops. The rest are split into here in a small force. And then for the French, a lot of it's predetermined. You have to have a fairly large force here. I think this guy starts out with... Yeah, this guy starts off with a good deal of troops. So you don't have a lot left to put between these 2 spaces. I put the majority over here because it's closer to the enemy, and I really don't know which way those are going. This, it's a weak force. Maybe you can capture some fortresses or something. If it doesn't look like it's opposed, maybe it can stand off from fortresses and slow down an enemy's advance by doing that. Because if you're within 3 of one of the fortresses, it can't just be captured, but you might be out of range of being attacked. Also, the enemy doesn't know what's in your pieces. So, finally, putting only 1 troop in a piece might be a mistake. Because if you have the right cards, you can kind of win a battle no matter how many pieces you have. But you take a penalty or a potential additional penalty if you lose a leader. And that may be a reason, to not have just one unit that you could lose it due to, getting cut off from supply or something. The Hussars, though, aren't allowed on this map, only on this map, so that kind of helps there. All right, now we're set up to play, and we draw two of these, and they're now available. And the first one is Denmark. The Pragmatic Army would get one additional tactical card immediately and 3 extra strength points, and this can only be played by the Pragmatics, the French, and the Austrians. Well, the Austrians, who knows what they'd feel about it. The French probably want to deny this card from happening. So the most likely person to bid on this is the Pragmatic Army. Here's another one, only Pragmatic French and Austrians. Jenkins' Ear. And this is going to give one less tactical card to the French. It's not that big a deal. You probably don't want to spend a tactical card to prevent that unless it's a very low one. But it also lets, if it's played, the person picking it up to move the Italy marker. Now that, taking away a tactical point, the Pragmatics might care about that, but probably not. The French care about preventing this event from even happening. But the Austrians might not mind both effects. Denying France a card doesn't really hurt them. They're facing the French in a number of places, and they can move Austria. Now, what I don't understand is, well, the Pragmatics might want it. So hurt France and move Austria, or move Italy in favor of the French. I don't know, but that could hurt Austria and help Prussia a little bit there. That's the kind of card that negotiations might, have some effect on, basically. But I can't see France particularly wanting it to be played, even if it hurts Austria and France in Italy. But maybe, maybe. All right. So now, the first person who has to choose to play a card here is Prussia. Prussia's not involved in any of these. No, the first thing we do is we determine what the suit is. Now, since nobody's won a battle, that's done just by turning this up. And the suit will be clubs. I got a decent clubs card, but Prussia can't do crap, basically. I don't want to bank cards. I feel banking cards is interesting, but it's kind of random unless you know you're going to get to choose the suit. So Prussia's not going to play a card. That puts us to France. France is particularly interested in this one. I'd like to prevent both of them. But I don't have any clubs, and I have very few cards. I will also pass. Puts me on the Pragmatics. We don't have a lot of cards either. The only club they have is a reserve. Is this that important? Well, 3 troops and a +1 is pretty good. So I'm actually going to play that. That's a big card to waste on this. And now the Austrians say, wow, there's only 2 people there. If I play a club, I get it. Unfortunately, I don't have a club. And I'm kind of low on cards for facing the Prussians. So I'm going to pass as well. All the cards are flipped up. Only the Pragmatics have a card. So they get to choose which one they want. Well, that's pretty obvious. They want this one. And that'll give them a little +1 marker for the cards for this turn. Oh, wait, did they just get it? Yeah, they just immediately get the card. It's not a payout. Okay. So these guys I'm going to put under the deck. There's a mechanical reason for that. I'll explain it in a moment. This goes here. And they're going to get 3 extra troops, which they record. And it doesn't really matter where I'll put that. I'll put it in George, I guess, just to make sure no army is too small. That could cause some difficulties at the very least. This gets discarded. This also gets discarded, but I'm going to keep it as a reminder. So why do I put the cards onto the deck? Because when this deck runs out, it starts storing up here. Once all 4 decks have been run through once, and it's not really that big a deal right now, then other than the current deck, when the current deck runs out, I guess it doesn't matter, but when the current deck runs out, you choose the deck with the largest pile. But to tell you the truth, it really doesn't make a difference. But this is fine. It's a good place to store them. I thought there was actually a rationale behind what I was doing. Like, I did it because I thought there was a rationale. All right, let's pull away, and then we'll get started with kind of the more military actions. The Austrian player gets to drop his hussies on the board. He's got 2 of them. It actually really doesn't matter right now. There are situations, mainly what they do, as far as I'm concerned, is there's something that when you move an Austrian army, you consider what it's going to have as an effect for the hussies. Now, the Austrian movement comes after everybody else's, I believe, which means that the Austrians can push their army up into a position where they can drop a couple of hussies down and disrupt what's going on. Right now, it makes absolutely they make no value at all because I'm not already positioned to throw them on the board. But I'll just put them down. Basically, though, they mean nothing because the Prussians can just run through them. They could prevent a force march. I think they count as something you can't pass through. I'm not sure. But there's already plenty of garbage in the way. So now the next thing is the French and Bavarian action turn. Well, for this we have to look at the cards. France is getting only 4 cards, and Bavaria gets 2, because there is a subsidy automatically in place that can't be violated, repudiated, whatever, on that first year. So France 4, Austria 2. So I deal these suckers out. And then, I'm sorry, not Austria, Bavaria. Okay. And now I check supply while we're all in our home countries, except for the French, who are near this supply source. So we're in supply. And now it's time to move. I have to look at my cards and think to do that. I'll describe the effects of that attempt to think. I already started some of my movement with the French here. I looked at their cards and the Bavarian cards, and I pushed the Bavarians a little bit down south, the French here. Some of it's determined by the cards, but to some extent, I kind of don't expect to be facing these guys at all. So this, even though I have hearts in the French hand. Now the French hand's kind of weird, because they actually drew more cards than they had. So let's look at them. We can briefly look at the Bavarians. The Bavarians had clubs and diamonds, a few of those. That made it look like this pathway was more interesting than trying to head to the north. Now, whether or not I'm going to keep a French unit with the Bavarian unit is a big question. I feel like I may need it because if Tron has forces of any significance, I got problems. But on the other hand, remember the cards mean less, and I got to keep this supply unit so it supplies both French units. They can't draw off the Bavarian Allied supply train, as far as I recall. Yeah, it has to be his own color. Okay, but over here, let's look at the thinking that I'm going to use here. So, diamonds and hearts look strong. Clubs are not bad. Well, diamonds and hearts. So we're going to move this guy up 1, 2, 3 into here. We're not really. We could 1, 2, 3. We could put a threat on here, but we still have that threat in place, kind of. Because if we get 3 of these, that's worth a victory point. That would be nice to have at the end of the winter. This guy here, he can move up to the Hearts area. 1, 2, 3. I can move 4 because I'm moving along the road. I can actually force march. As far as that, I can't move adjacent to an enemy city, if I recall correctly, from a force march. Right. No. No, I can move adjacent to, I can't move into. Now that puts us in a problem, though, because we have to decide where to put this. We don't want to put it where it's threatened, if that's any importance. I don't think this space is terribly threatened. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, let's put it up here. That gives me some capability to balance between them. What about this army? We'll just push that forward. Not much has happened, but that's okay. So that was the French-Bavarian turn. The next one is going to be Prussia and Saxony. Let's look at the Saxons here briefly. I am not quite sure. They don't really integrate with the Prussians particularly, but so I feel like I can, I mean, yes, they're close, but I feel like I can operate them kind of separately because I'm kind of worried about these things falling to the French. So I look here, okay, I don't have great cards anyway, but what I do have are clubs and diamonds. My fastest way down to Prague is 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't do a forced march because the big road doesn't go beyond that. So that's going to be the Prussian side. I'll move this along. It's not under any threat, and getting it as close as possible is good. So for the Prussian side, this is really hard to do, but I got spades, diamonds, and clubs. No hearts. That's important. We're going to slice down through here. Now, we can't force march over enemy fortresses, so we'll just do a normal march. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we capture a fortress because the hussars, although they're within 3, don't prevent anything. It has to be an actual army. Now, unfortunately, we're in diamonds. Yeah, we can handle diamonds. And Leopold is looking at not using hearts, probably. 1, 2, 3. Is this safe? That's one of the problems always. So what happens? Well, it depends on where this moves, right? 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we're inside enemy territory because Silesia is not yet controlled. So this unit could get cut off by 2 hussars where he is. So this may not be the safest place. Could this unit? Well, he's actually got 1, 2, 3 routes out. But if Breslau is cut, then I only have to put 1 here. That could be dangerous. And the Austrians could get close enough, couldn't they? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I don't think they. Yeah, let me check hussar placement. Wow. So I can't really afford to be here. So what if we move instead? Now they can't be placed in a space that has the supply train, but the supply train couldn't get this far. If I could have gotten the supply train all the way down here. Oh wait, 1, 2. If I get the supply train here, it can move 3. Right, 1, 2. No, it did move 3. Yeah, if I could get the supply train here, I would be in a better position. As it stands, though, I think I can't move this where I want it to. So I'm going to move it to Breslau. What does that do for me? Well, it's almost automatically in supply. And it's protecting this route, which means I would need a hussar here, here, and up here to hurt the Prussian Frederick supply. And you can see, I mean, this guy wasn't doing that much. He was mainly providing a defensive screen. Well, it's more important he provides a defensive screen to the supplies, given the existence of the hussars. No one else has to worry about this crap, because it's only the fights in Austria where you really have to worry about your supplies in that kind of level. Because everything else, basically, I mean, it's very hard to cut supplies with regular armies. You'd have to get somebody in some kind of stupid little corner like this and put 2 armies on them. It's worth doing, but just because actually fighting battles costs you resources, whereas you could drain the other person of resources without. But this would cost you armies that you have the capability to move around with. So I believe that's the Prussian turn. Go to the next one. Discussion, I was a little wrong about the Austrian Pragmatic Army cooperation. Basically, they can decide to pulse the Flanders map however they like. If they can't agree, the Pragmatic Army moves an army first, then the Austrian, then the Pragmatic, then the Austrian if they still have one. Anyway, I've pushed out their cards here to show what's going to be strong. Let's look. So the Pragmatics are good in hearts. The Austrians are good in hearts and spades. The Austrians really don't care too much about these unless France is close to winning. Pragmatics do care, but they have some problems. The Austrians are fine where they are if they can get the Pragmatics to defend this. Given the particular cards the Pragmatic Army has, it seems like defending that isn't a bad choice for them. So we're going to move here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can actually move further. Hold on. Let's move this 1, 2, up to Brussels. That protects Tournai. Maybe 1, 2, 3 would be better, because that protects both of these. It doesn't protect Brussels, but Brussels is kind of hard to take. So then I can move this thing. Okay, I want the Austrians to move their supplies first. That means the Austrians have to move their army. Well, they don't like diamonds. They like hearts and spades. I could fight here. All right. This is hearts. So the problem with fighting here is I'd have trouble getting my supply. Nope, I'm in supply. Okay, we're going to fight there. That means now I can move this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I can push this supply marker so that it's in a slightly better place. We'll get back to that in a moment, because we need to move these. So here, I got hearts and spades. Now here's what's kind of weird. I'm counting on using hearts here, so I kind of don't, since I'm going into a battle, I can't double count these. If I wasn't fighting a battle in either of the places, there's a tendency, and it may not be a wise one, to say, you know what, I'm okay in hearts, I'm okay in hearts, and to have armies in both. And then you might get hit twice and be put in a position where you no longer can fight in that square, that type of square anymore very well. First thing, let's see if I did the Prussian supplies right. What could I cut? This is the problem space. I can't cut Leopold. And I'm going to need to cut at least 3 chains, yeah. So I'm not going to have enough hussies to do this. Unless I could get to this space, which would cut one of these, and then I could cut, across here. I can't do that, though. I don't have that kind of movement. So now we start looking at what we want to defend. French Austrians are not moving forward very quickly. We're in danger of being attacked there. I know that Traun does not have a lot of forces. So I don't want to move him any closer. This thing barely matters. This, I want to get this on the road. Over here, these are both reasonably sized forces. Do I want to combine them? Or do I want to face the Saxons who are over in diamonds? I don't have much in the way of diamonds. I'm going to combine my forces and we'll, I guess, drop this back a little bit. It's not really in any danger, but we don't know where it's going to go. Okay, that means we actually have a battle, which is impressive. That's going to be an Austrian versus French, so I can tuck these aside, and I'll come back to that in a moment. So to resolve this battle between Ehrenberg, okay, and Noailles. Ehrenberg has only 4 strength points. Noailles has 7. And in fact, yeah, I have no idea that he has that many, so he could have been a weaker force. So Austria starts out at -3. I got a lot of choices. I could zero it out, but then I'd have to play again. So I'm just going to play this card and put myself to +7. Well, you have the option to say, oh yeah, I'm just going to destroy my force. So like if this is +7 and I don't have a lot of troops here, I might just want to get it wiped out. But I have a fairly big amount of troops. So I'm going to drop it down to -2. The Austrians have already expended quite a bit. Hearts, they're not in good shape in. I'll bring it up to +1, but I don't have much hope. And now the French drop it down to -4. Okay. Well, the Austrian army, which was size 4, has just been wiped out. Ehrenberg is destroyed. I'm going to erase him rather than something else. He's removed from the board. He'll be available to repurchase, well, to purchase troops for and bring back on. The French lose nothing. As I said, there's something very goofy about the whole simulation of the combat, the maneuver, even because of the cards in this system. I basically make this statement: this is not a war game because it doesn't simulate certain things we expect a war game to simulate. The hard part is it does do a sufficient simulation of the supply situation, which a lot of war games that cover this period just don't do. You know, they use like trace supply or something. This is actually pretty close to what you want. Okay, although reinforcements can get through, but again, you don't have like the continuous line that you have in a World War I or World War II game, anything 20th century really. No, never mind. World War I, World War II. Let's stick with that because Vietnam, obviously, you don't have a continuous line either. So reinforcements could kind of infiltrate in, and you don't have the rail lines and the supply net that they provide in the same way as you do in, say, a Civil War game. So supply is somewhat of a different beast. Basically, the idea of additional troops coming, those troops are just marching there, you know, from somewhere. And as long as there's a path through and the unit's in supply, essentially, somehow, well, you're not going to get encirclements or anything like that in this era. And if you, yeah. So where am I? So the effects of the battle. That's the kind of interesting thing. So we have to worry about. I don't see them here. We have to worry about the political effects of the battle, and that's here. Every 3 troops eliminated are destroyed. If less than 3 were eliminated, but 1 general was removed, it's worth 1 victory point. Okay, so only 4 troops were destroyed. That means 1 French victory point is put in the battle box, and they can only gain 2 of these. It also means that I give them something. I'll give them... All right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them the little marker that says marker. That's just cut out from the frame. And that'll just indicate that from now on, the French control what the trump suit is on the victory card. They won a battle. That's a big deal. Now, the Austrians lost a battle. That doesn't mean anything because they didn't have any points already allocated up here. And they're not involved, like Prussia has this special rule where if they lose battles, it affects the Saxon thing, even if they don't lose victory points off the battle, if they would have lost victory points. So that has gotten us through the entirety of the first turn, I believe. And we push this forward, and we look at this and say there's enough time to cover other things. I'm probably going to step back a little bit. I don't want to cover in this much detail. I want to let the story unfold more. But that gives you some of the mechanisms in play. When I get to winter, I'll go over what little detail there is there. But all right, I say I'm going to go away from the detail, but now I want to go into it a little bit. I drew my two events, Swedish Russian War. What this is going to do, and these are kind of neat to explore anyway. What this is going to do is it allows, if it gets activated, Italy will go towards the Austrians, but Russia could go in either direction. And you could see where Prussia might want to drive Russia away, but doesn't mind giving Austria victory points because maybe they know Austria is not going to be doing well, whatever. France obviously just doesn't want this played. They don't care much about Russia. And likewise, France definitely doesn't want this played, whereas Austria does. France has the power of saying which one they want to affect. Well, no. They have the power of saying which suit is trump. They're going to make diamonds trump. There's not an easy way for me to buck this. They have a lot of diamonds. Now, there's a negative to this, which is if they do play a diamond, they're throwing away a good card, that maybe they can use. But other than this box, I don't see much in diamonds that I particularly want to go to, and I don't need to go up there anytime in the near future. Of course, I burnt all my hearts, which kind of, that's what I was counting on before. But I'm going to make diamonds trump, and then we start looking at who wants to play and influence things. So, for example, Prussia, they might want to trigger this just to weaken the Russian threat on them. We'll see. It doesn't look like they're operating in diamonds, so if they have one, they probably do. This did not charge. Okay, well, the Pragmatics, not interested, so they passed. The Austrians had a low diamond, but France and Prussia had already played a card. They decided not to play one, which means we flip these over. Prussia gets its pick. Well, it can only affect one. It does want to trigger that one. France could have negated both cards by, if they had known that these guys weren't playing, by playing their high diamond and preventing Prussia and making them bank that card. But instead, Prussia is going to get to play this card, and that drives this back, and we'll take this back. And then this card, France want it discarded. That's why they put a card in play. They got the essential effect by just preventing anyone else from wanting to play. Of course, it did cost them a decent card. Okay, and now we go to the Hussies. Nowhere useful I can place them. But I like to throw them out on the board anyway. I'm not sure why. That will put us on the French-Bavarian turn. French and Bavarians moved first, and they moved this French army up, grabbed Prague. This is mainly a race with the Saxons rather than anything else. And we're not at war, so we're not opposed, so they can't seize it from us or anything. This keeps us in a position we're kind of far away from the Austrian army, so we're pretty safe here. But here, we've got a problem. This Austrian army, this Bavarian French army can't, Frank will be Bavarian, can't really move here It can't attack Tron. It can't capture any of this while Tron's here because he's, got it in range. But any advance is endangered because of the Hussies. The Austrians can position themselves in a location where they could throw a couple of Hussies down. So if I'm here, I'm probably okay. Am I not? Because I've got like 3 paths coming out, which is fairly strong, although I might have to move my supply wagons. And I might have to be careful because the French have to supply off this wagon. So I might have to split my force or something. Any further in, though, like here, there's 2 choke points right there. Here, it's really unlikely I'll be able to trace this way or this way, either one, So it's beginning to look really dangerous. So what if I moved here? Could I be in supply? For one thing, I have to worry because this has to keep this in supply. So this can't really move too much to the south. It could move further east. And right now, I'm not sure that I see a solution that'll allow me to make any gains. And that's 1 strength point here. It doesn't have to do anything. It's just putting a threat. Now, I don't know that that's only 1 strength point. I probably have more forces here, but remember the cards are of, such significance that like moving, unless I have good diamonds, I can't even count that I would necessarily win a fight against Tron there. Anyway, that's just some thoughts. But in the Flanders side, I did my movement here. I'm a little worried about this unit, actually. I thought it was out of the way, but 1, 2, I can force march. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get me into range where I think I can actually cut that unit off. But I don't remember exactly where he was, so I can't really reset it. I was so worried about these guys who, I'm kind of repositioning. We'll see what it all ends up in, because you can get cut off from supply. You can still fight while you're out of supply, and it doesn't really hurt you. The Austrians could put themselves in a position where they could, maybe cause a loss of a supply, a strength point due to supply, but then lose their army because they're within range of regular road movement, if they can really intervene. Over here, I'm not sure what to do with him because the French don't have much in the way of cards. They fought a battle. They're good in diamonds and clubs. Well, I don't really have either of those around here. I can't capture anything. The pragmatic army is too close to me. I guess I could try to fight up in clubs, but my French army is, I only have 1 card, and my French army there has only 1 strength point. It sounds like a good way to lose a battle. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this back to try to defend my own fortresses back here and make things a little harder so the pragmatic can't capture them right away. Army 1's kind of big. I'm going to send that up. But this one can actually do some stuff. So 1, 2, I move out of there. That gets me a victory point. Now, I could push forward up here because the Austrian army is gone, but right now, so I went 1, 2, no. I went 1, 2. Now 3, I can move back here. Flip this over. That's Trier. That goes here. I now have 3 of these 4, so I get another victory point over here on the electors. And now I'm in a position where I'm sort of, putting a threat on the pragmatic army. Now I'm not in a position where I can really definitely fight. 1, 2, 3. Let's see that back. 1. I don't know where it was. I think this was 4. 3, 2, 1, 0. Let's go back here and see where we want to fall back. We want to keep Lille in range. So now we're protecting all these fortresses just because we're 3 away from them all. And now we see about this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We stack these armies. And now we've got a powerful force in the north. This guy might be free to move around and act. Where do I want my supply wagon? Shit, I don't know. He's pretty safe where he is, but I might want to get him on a major road. I don't have to worry about stupid hussars or anything like that. So this gives me more of a support so that I can actually push forward into Flanders. Anyway, lots of interesting decision making in terms of where you can maneuver to and everything. The only problem I have still is so much of it's determined by these cards and what you're making your decisions on. It's neat. From a game standpoint, it works really well. In terms of what's done, what the effects are, it doesn't seem terribly ahistorical, right? You've got certain positionings you can make and everything. The only thing is something just feels so wrong about the reasons. And those reasons, and then when you actually come to combat, which is driving your reasons, right? It comes down to just what cards you're holding, which has a certain foreknowledge that seems disturbing, and then also it has too much influence, too little influence on the amount of troops you bring. Look, if I'm bringing into an area, something like 4-1 odds or something, I don't care what your cards are, you're not going to be able to defeat me. You might be able to slow me down. That's about all that should happen. And the combat system just doesn't reflect that kind of what the troops seem to mean. So now we've got a lot of abstractions in place. One of the abstractions really being, I'm not sure troop strengths actually mean what you think they mean. They're not like numerical, they're maybe something else, something magical, right? And I'm not sure what the cards mean. They may mean the troop strengths in actuality, like that you have variable troops, that are present, like, so garrisons here that you can suck in or something like that. It all just kind of becomes a mystery to me as to what the game is trying to represent, even if the actual appearance of what's going on the map seems correct. Okay, so now the Saxons are actually in a little bit of a risky position. There's only 2 here. I'm within range, I think, of this army to be able to force march into position. It's the same kind of situation here. What would be really ugly is if somehow 2 birds could be killed with 1 stone. I don't think that can be done, though. This is the key space for this unit, though. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, this is not a good place to be. I'm going to push back 1 space because now this space becomes important as well as that space. And this space maybe becomes important, like it's a choice between the 2. But I can trace supply in either direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can also trace supply down this way. So there's 3 things that would have to be cut. I'm not sure that there's a way to prevent supply from being traced from this. Because remember, there's no opposition here, so I can trace through the force in Prague, even if they can't cooperate. Over here, the Prussians were seriously considering pushing forward far enough that they would be in risk of supply loss. I don't see that as important. One of the interesting things about the supply, though, is you really don't have to worry about a trace from your supply wagon. The idea being, again, there's no solid front or anything, so you're going to be able to slip something through. That may be a little overly optimistic. It seems so to me. It seems like if the enemy cuts off behind you here, they could create cordons or such not. That would really maybe not completely prevent any supplies from getting through, but would degrade them to the point where, hey, you wouldn't really be able to fight battles. You certainly wouldn't be able to get a siege underway. You would have to clear that up. That's not represented here. These things are sort of free moving. So even with the supply system, which I think is the strongest point in terms of historical, accuracy in the game, other than what the positioning kind of, on a broad scale, the fact that you're like putting force in certain areas and such not represents. Which also I think does a reasonably good job. So here's the thing. If this were a more abstract game, somehow, I'd be more tempted to say it makes sense. The problem is that there is sort of a level of detail that's handled, that's implied by the cards, that's implied, by the positioning, etc., that just defeats my suspension of disbelief in it. The fact that there's a number for the troops that destroys whatever believability that I have in what's going on. And I have a real hard time. I can do some hand waving and try to come up with reasons for it, like the idea that there's huge garrisons represented by your cards, but then they vaporize, when you do a political action or something like that. And maybe that makes sense, but they wouldn't actually vaporize. They would end up somewhere, right? And the truth of the matter is, there were not garrisons, from my understanding, to the size that would have the impact that we're talking about. Garrisons in the fortress, even in the major fortresses, were fairly small amounts. You could strip them bare, and it would make some sense, but they still aren't going to have the effect that's presented. And what it certainly cannot represent is some kind of little terrain advantage or something that you see. It may just be, I will be the god of combat, and I can take, 2,000 men and defeat a 10,000 man army. If that's what it's representing, the game is completely bogus, right? So you've got to come up with some other kind of answer that makes sense about the cards. I'm realizing my decision making was all done without drawing additional cards like I'm supposed to at the beginning of your action phase. So I'll fill out the other player's hands just to make sure that they don't screw up. And chances are they still made the right decisions, but sometimes those additional cards, especially when you don't have many, like France is only sitting on 3, might have affected those decisions, but I'll leave it. And we come to an interesting point where I'm starting to deal out the French cards, and I've run out of deck. These go over here, where maybe they get recharged, but I gotta pull from a new deck. Now, you have to shuffle the crap out of these decks, there's no question of that, because I don't know who gets first draw. I think the French actually do, so we'll see that instead. But the reason you need to shuffle the crap out of the cards is because suits tend to clump together. You'll see discards from here being in the trump suit. You'll see discards from a single battle being in certain selected suits, even in the winter. So you're going to see actually at least as much clumping as you see in trick-taking games and such not, which means make sure you shuffle real well. I go with the old 7 riffs or whatever. That is kind of not the standard. Normally people say, you have to do it at least 3 times. That's like what Hoyle suggests. Nah, do it the 7. As long as they're imperfect shuffles, which they're almost bound to be, you're going to, most of them at least, you're going to end up with a fair amount of randomization from that. I believe the Austrians have set themselves up so that they can cause some losses here with 1, 2, 3, 4. They cut this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The French are going to be cut off. Their only short line was here. They should have probably gone, I don't know what they did. I think they started here and moved there and back because it gave them more flexibility in terms of where they're going to go. But now they're going to lose a strength point because of that and have to kind of fall back. That's probably not too big a deal. I mean, the strength point sucks, but because they're not going to be able to capture anything up here easily. The Austrians also positioned themselves in an area where they had a good suit, and it doesn't quite defend this, which could be a problem, but again, the Prussians will have to put themselves in a more exposed position to get that. I kind of want to prevent the Prussians from being able to sue for peace. I'm not sure why exactly. It just seems like I should try to defend Silesia, but honestly, if I could focus more on, just one enemy, the French and Bavarians, I would gain something, and especially if I can, like, you know, give up what's sort of foreordained in exchange for being able to take the war against someone else. I don't know. Anyway, we're at the end of this video, and we've gone and the end of the second turn. So we got one more turn for the year. I'll probably be able to go through at least to the end of next year on the next video, because again, I'm not going into as much detail anymore, I think. And let's send this one up.